Some people might regard this video as being a bit too cinematic for YouTube, but that's only because I'm shooting on this 20mm anamorphic lens. Anamorphic lenses are what create the dreamy, widescreen, cinematic, almost unexplainable look that we know and recognize on Hollywood films. And over the past few years, Sirui has just been a trailblazer in creating access to lenses like these so that indie filmmakers like you and I can create the same look at a fraction of the cost. So if you've never shot on or know what anamorphic glass is or what's the difference between it and spherical lenses, one key difference is that 40mm on a spherical lens is not the same as 40mm on an anamorphic lens. Vertically, the 40mm lenses behave and look the same, but horizontally is where the difference comes in at. So if you're trying to understand what is the horizontal focal length of an anamorphic lens, you take the focal length that you already know that it is, which for this lens is a 40mm, and you divide that by what the squeeze factor is on the lens. For this lens, it is 1.33, giving a 30mm horizontal focal length, whereas vertically is measuring 40mm. And to go in depth with the lens we're actually using, vertically, the 20mm might be measuring as 20mm, but horizontally, it is comparative to a 15mm spherical lens. So in one shot, you get the height of a 40mm, but the width of a 30mm, which creates that ability to capture landscapes in a way that you would not see on a spherical lens. It creates this otherworldly look. Let's just be real. They hold their own when they come to focusing in a real world setting. But of course, they're not as great as like your Sony G Master lenses or any of your other photography lenses that you might have autofocus on. And I mainly attribute that to the overall character of anamorphic lenses anyway. Anamorphic lenses are known for being sharp at the center of the frame. And that's mostly attributed to the distortion and vignetting that you have, which is why when you see most things that are shot on anamorphic lenses, they put the character or frame the person of interest in the center. So with these being autofocus lenses, they tend to lose focus or hunt for the subject when you try to focus that subject more on the edges. On most spherical lenses, you'll see the background blur. It stays like perfectly spherical and round and uniform, and it looks all nice and scientific. But with these Sirui anamorphic lenses, the bokeh is a lot more hexagonal in shape, which creates a dreamy, just overall eye-catching look that you just can't get with spherical glass. Sirui actually offers these lenses in two different versions, one version being the blue flare version and the other version being the neutral flare version. I opted to get the blue flare version simply because that's what you think of when you think of anamorphic lenses. And as you can see, these signature blue streaks are very easily and instantly created across the screen when you flash light towards the camera. Now on to distortion and vignetting. The vignetting is simply just going to happen with these lenses. They were made to go on Super 35 or APS-C sensors. I'm using them on a full frame camera, which is why you're going to see a lot of the vignetting happening along the edges. In terms of distortion, these lenses do carry a lot of pincushion distortion, but these two things I feel like only add to the character of these lenses, as I've said before. Now, let's take a look at the build quality of these lenses. These lenses feature a 77mm filter thread, which is pretty standard and will make it a lot easier to attain ND filters and step-up rings as needed to screw on filters on the front. The body on this lens is a full aluminum metal housing, giving it that premium cinema glass feel. These particular lenses are in Sony E-Mount, but Sirui also makes them in L-mount, Z-mount, X-mount, and micro four thirds. You'll also find that the lens features a USB-C port for firmware updates to improve focus, and also the locating pins along the back of the lens to allow the camera to read focus. But don't let this beautiful housing of this lens fool you. While it looks and feels like cinema glass, these are still autofocus lenses, which means there are no hard stops on the focus ring. That means that if you're working with a focus puller, repeatable stops are a lot harder to find comparable to when you're working with real cinema glass. So here's the bottom line. The Sirui 40mm and 20mm T1.8 anamorphic autofocus lenses, that's a mouthful, give the cinematic character of a real cinema lens, the convenience of autofocus with pro build quality, all at the price that opens the anamorphic world to more creators than it ever has before. So if you've been looking to add anamorphic lenses to your kit and the only drawback was that they didn't have autofocus, that is no longer a fear. Thank you for watching and keep creating.